So in three, two, one, welcome back to the Human Sexuality Podcast. I'm Lee,
And I'm Peyton.
and today we're kind of doing a very brief summation of what we think should be included in a sex ed course, sexual education course. Most important, I think, bare bones and minimum in a class like this is anatomy. Um, I don't know about you, but I've seen a million different videos on social media of grown adult men who are surprised by things that they learn about.
Yeah,
Um,
and it goes
that's
both ways. There's women who don't know like a single thing about how a man's body works.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think that just kind of goes to show the failure of the American health education system.
So you start off anatomy, how male body works, how female bodies work.
Yes, I really think a big hallmark, I think everyone, at least American, can relate to, taking social studies, you had to put names of countries on maps. I think matching would be very important here in like a test situation. Um,
Yeah,
if you can't list and label, then you're obviously not paying attention.
because you have to know the basics before you can start learning about the more complex nature of what sexuality is for us.
Absolutely. Um,
Because if you don't start like with what things are, then you're just gonna have a bunch of people who are confused about like, whoa, what, where did we skipped a lot of things. So you need to
yes.
start with what are these parts and what do they do and why do we have these feelings?
Another big like section on this would to be to touch on orgasms, the reason behind them, um, why they're important. Um, not just for like a physical reason, but also um, I think that at most sex education classes, at least the ones that we know about in the South, um, it's very, don't do this. And when they talk about the partner, it's about saving yourself for the partner, but it's never about pleasing the partner.
And orgasm is a part of anatomy. It needs to be talked about because
Yeah, and,
orgasms are one of the steps for our how we work sexually. So if you're skipping over that part or grazing over it, then once again, you're not getting a full view of the picture and you can't really move on to talks about consent and what safe sex is because you don't know how sex in itself works.
exactly. You have to know how to engage before you can engage.
Yeah. Speaking of
Um,
safe sex,
yeah, good transition there.
you would teach the use of contraceptives and
Yes.
what else?
Well, I think really fundamentally the different types of contraceptives and their effectiveness, like percentages, be very important. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but my home state of Mississippi, it is illegal for a teacher to even mention contraceptives, or like rather, you can get in a lot of hot water if you like, the condom on the banana tutorial.
Yeah.
That is illegal in the state that I grew up in,
Oh wow.
which is yeah, absolutely insane. But not only that, but what about contraceptives in the sense of like STI prevention from oral, like dental dams? That's another important one that really never gets talked about.
Yeah, because
Uh,
like dental dams are something that's really frustrating for me because dental dams were taken from like you can tell from dentistry. The I can't remember exactly, but it was they used the technology from what that was for and they translated it over to that and they haven't updated the design of it
right.
and people a lot of people that I've talked to have no idea what a dental dam is. Because I had a lot
Yeah.
of past partners who like I would introduce them to it and they were just like, what is this? And I'm like, it's for protection against STIs and stuff. It's for safe sex. And they just
And
no idea.
and that should also um talking about safe sex and consent, essentially being open to that conversation. And I think another important thing is like how to talk about, getting tested and how to open up to a partner about, wanting to be tested because, you never know what might happen out there, what you might get exposed to. Um,
A lot of free clinics offer STI testing and the whole range of that, and women's centers offer them as well. Actually, a lot of functions of Planned Parenthood, a lot of people think that it's just like abortions and stuff. No, a lot of what Planned Parent does is uh, sexual health.
yes. I always feel so bad when you read those stories on the internet of people who were going to Planned Parenthood to get an STI test or something, and they're getting stopped by anti-abortion people screaming at them. It's like you clearly don't know everything that this place does. Uh,
Maybe if that information was in the school system, maybe we wouldn't have so many protesters.
Absolutely. Honestly, another big thing that is so important is just to get the information out there. Like, give your students phone numbers of and locations of places to free testing. A lot of I don't know if they do this here, but they do give away condoms in a lot of health centers. You can just ask for them and they'll just hand them to you. And a lot of people, I think another thing, to side train thought again, but getting over the shame of being tested is another big thing. So many people won't do it because they're embarrassed to get the answer back.
Yeah, that leads to like how would that be able to be put place in a school setting, like introducing the information about places that offer these tests and treatment. How,
Well,
like, I don't know how that would go about because a lot of parents wouldn't want their children going to a clinic setting to get tests done. So maybe it shouldn't be like the introduction of the information shouldn't be that. It should be talking with your parents about what these things are.
and I kind of agree with you. But I also disagree because I've noticed this culture, at least again in the South, where you the parents don't want someone else talking about sex with their kids, but they're not going to do it either. Um, which is just kind of a sink or swim mentality, which I we're going to go back to teen pregnancy and STI rates are the highest in the American South. Um, so that might have something to do with it. I don't know. But going on to our next like point, still stemming from this topic, um, healthy and open and honest communication and sexual health. Like, I mean, you wouldn't really necessarily have to say like this. Here's where you go to do this, but you could have someone like a someone who works in the health department come and speak and just
Yeah.
say, "This is what we offer. This is what we do, and our doors are open from 9 to 5 every day, except for the weekends, I think."
Yeah, you could
But
kind of set up the class like the process of learning this through like first you learn anatomy, then you learn about what safe sex is and contraceptives, then you learn about why you need those, and then you learn about how to have these healthy relationships and a healthy sexual relationship with somebody.
yes, and sexual health too is so important.
Well, you
Because
could
your
do
body
like
has a very unique way of telling you when something's wrong.
yeah, the body does do very well
Yeah,
at alerting you.
yeah. I think that's another. Just listen to your body. Don't be afraid to explore it, listen to it, and if you don't feel right, go and get some help. Um, you know, there should never be any shame about this.
So, do
Um,
you think that learning about healthy relationships and healthy sexual relationships is in line with learning about sexual health?
I think it is, and that gets into a difficult topic because who's to say what a perfectly healthy relationship is? That could be subjective, but showing like good models of what is good in a relationship, like the communication and being able to be vulnerable with somebody before the ultimate act of vulnerability, which is sex. is super important. You shouldn't say this is what your relationship should look like, but these are the hallmarks of what we view as a healthy relationship. And you
So,
should never be afraid to talk.
a- so a healthy sexual relationship can look like anything, but it's based on the ideas of open communication, uh, being comfortable with one's partner, consent, always being able to withdraw consent, and trust.
Absolutely. And mutual respect, I think, is a big one that needs to be put in there too.
Yes, because there are extreme sexual relationships that to most people would look like that is unhealthy. What are you doing? But between those two people, it's a good relationship for them.
Yes, exactly. We can't police and govern people's idea of relationship, but we can help kids understand, you know, what is what is healthy. If you don't feel comfortable doing something, you shouldn't feel uncomfortable saying that.
Yeah.
And then I think a next, the next biggest one is pregnancy. What to do if you want to have options, if you want to, uh, keep the pregnancy, and how the best way to be healthy with that. Just basically, I think that kids need to know that there are options.
Would that be like a lesson that's taught on its own, or would that be included with anatomy since pregnancy does is a function of the body?
I think it's a little bit of both. You need to be able to look at it and see what it does to a body. Um, that's the one thing that I think if abstinence only programs really harped on, it would actually probably work. Just the amount of things that a woman has to go through, um, the way the body changes, and the not negative side effects, what's the complications? That's the word I'm thinking of that can come with that. Um,
Yeah.
that's a very strong deterrent. But also, for some people, pregnancy is the ultimate goal. Being able to raise and have a family, and how to go about doing that in a responsible way too. Of course,
Yeah.
seventh graders don't need to be pregnant, but they need to know.
They don't.
Yeah,
We don't need to have children having children,
no, absolutely not.
which is why
Um,
that needs to be included in any kind of sexual education course.
Absolutely. The only thing that we haven't talked about, which is a very big point of contention right now, is LGBTQIA plus sex ed, and like it kind of goes over the same, but having a chapter about consent and safe sex for those communities is also super important.
Yeah, it's kind of actually sad because being someone who is a member, like I didn't even think about teaching that in class. It just didn't
Well,
occur.
I mean, it's such a taboo topic around here,
Yeah.
that
But
you do kind of.
is it something that you need to teach in a class, or is it something that just needs to be introduced as this is just a way that people can exist?
I do think being taught in a class might help normalize it a little bit. So there's nothing wrong with this.
I mean, there are
Everything,
definitely things that can should be taught in a sexual education course regarding the LGBTQ because we do face a lot of risks when it comes to having a healthy sex life,
yes.
especially the male demographic. For the longest time, AIDS was a big deal because there was just no information about it, and this group of people was being just taken out and not being helped because there was no information about it.
Well, that also goes into how America has treated this community as second class citizens for so long. Um, because there was a point, I know one of my, still on topic, but off topic, one of my favorite things from COVID were people, talking about they don't want to wear masks, but there was this ad from the 60s or 70s during the AIDS epidemic where they were encouraging people to wear masks, which is so asinine anyway, because you can't get HIV or AIDS from breathing on somebody. But
Yeah.
they were more willing to do it then because of panic and fear. And that goes, you were afraid of what you don't understand, so teach it to where people can understand it. And I feel like that might foster better,
But
you know,
honestly, te teaching safe sex is the same regardless if you are gay or straight, because the process of sex is going to look mostly the same. So using the same protections is going to help you whether you're straight or gay. Like wearing
yes,
a condom
absolutely.
is going to help prevent any kind of sexual illness that could occur from being gay, even though straight people can get AIDS and gay people can get normal. I don't even know if there's a straight person STD, but there isn't.
Syphilis.
I don't know, but I don't think being gay changes what your sexual experience is biologically, but I do think it changes it socially.
Absolutely.
So teaching the same information and just not making it a difference between gay sex and straight sex, and just, hey, this is what healthy sex looks like, and here are what the social differences are between how gay people experience sexual relationships and so on, and how straight couples or straight people have these relationships, and kind of discuss the differences and the similarities in a classroom setting.
We're
That's
just
all.
solving all the world's problems here.
Oh, it's just a concept.
Who should teach the class, in your opinion?
Definitely not the PE teacher or the
Nope.
history teacher. Honestly,
Absolutely not.
I think that they should have a specified like sexual education teacher.
Yeah, at least someone with a degree in biology.
Yeah,
Like at least like a
like we have a science teacher, a history teacher, an English teacher, a PE teacher who sometimes also is the history teacher in some cases.
and a
But
driver's ed teacher.
yeah, and I know that a lot of teachers do switch over and do like different subjects, but I do think that there should be a class that specializes in teaching sexual education to like high school down, or like how whatever age they should start teaching it at, and there should be a specialized teacher who knows the topic well and knows how to articulate it to people who don't know as much.
I agree. Having at least one person do it, because the next one is who should we teach it to, um, and I'm of the belief that you should have it available from seventh to senior, like seventh grade to senior year, um, because that would mitigate parents who are like, oh, they're not old enough yet. Well, if you give kids the option of when to take it, then that might, you know, stop some of the the concern. Now, granted, like you could talk about the implications of sexually active teenagers not knowing what they're doing, and that is true. But um,
I think it reaches beyond like sexual activity, and because having information about at least anatomy from a younger age than seventh and ninth grade protects children, because from personal experience and a lot of research, I've I've kind of formed the opinion that, okay, not formed the opinion, but based on research, children who know what the names of sexual anatomy are less likely to be targeted by predators, because that child knows how to explain what someone has done to them. So if we arm
absolutely.
children with that knowledge, we can help them protect themselves. And instead of at younger ages, it should focus on what each child has it should be like, I don't want to say dumbed down, but it should be made more child appropriate
Yeah,
for what their age is. They should be taught what the anatomy is and who are safe people and where adults should not touch them.
absolutely.
And then as you get older, it like how you it, just like how any other class works. You learn the basics. Then as you get older, you learn more complicated versions of the same thing.
I absolutely agree. They're talking in our notes, they're talking about like maybe a half semester class, but I think that your model is a little bit better having like a standard and then like an honors basically.
Yep,
And then that
because
could
sexual
relate back to human
education
A and
isn't
P.
just about like sex. It's about like life.
Yeah, a lot of people don't like to think about it, but none of us would be here without it. So
I don't know how you could get that structure into a classroom because it would have a lot of debate, and that's understandable because some parents want to do that themselves. They don't want the public education system doing that for their children,
yeah.
and that's understandable.
So you're saying that it shouldn't be a mandatory class.
At younger ages, I don't think so.
Yeah, I agree. If a seventh grader, how old was I in seventh grade? Like 12, 11, 12? Yeah, probably. Um, my parents wouldn't want me to take that class, but if someone does think that, it's important, then you should give them that option. But I do agree with you that maybe once you hit 15, you should maybe have a mandatory class. Like it's
or
just gonna,
or at least make it, you can't make it so that the parent can't say no, because I
yeah.
was going to say you could just allow the student to decide if they are prepared to learn about that.
Then we get into issues of, autonomy of children, which is another issue that we're having right now in this country. But I think, kids are smarter than we give them credit for. They know things, and we're in the age of information. And it's interesting because the older generations are the ones choosing ignorance. Um, but the kids, they have so much information at their fingertips that they're gonna learn it anyway. It'd be better to learn it in a, not off of a Wikipedia page.
Because of access to the internet, a lot of children are exposed to pornography and stuff that's akin to pornography, and that isn't an accurate depiction of what a healthy sexual relationship is. It's an example of what sex is and can be, but it's like people who expect their relationships to be like romance movies.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get that exact same thing that you're saying. So having children exposed to pornography, and it's happening at younger and younger ages as well, these kids are being exposed to something that's not fully accurate, and they're gonna take that as the baseline.
And just to get back into the other topics, I do think that porn should be at least discussed in these classes
Because we
because
know they see it.
yeah, and there's stigma about porn and porn use, and it can be helpful, but there's also it needs to be talked about how the lack of reality from the situation porn is. Because a lot of at least young men, especially on the internet, you'll see they have this idea of that's what it's supposed like sex is supposed to look like, and when you go into that relationship, your first time and you basically try out all the moves that you've seen, it's not going to go over well. In my opinion,
We already
I think
figured
that
it.
at a certain level should be mandatory.
I don't think it would be possible to make it
No,
mandatory.
definitely not. There'd be too much outrage. There's already so much distrust in the government itself, having your the school system teach your kid. It's just that's anytime something becomes mandatory in this country, there's this idea of you can't make me do that.
Yeah.
But we see what's happened in the since the 1900s, uh, the boom of STDs and STIs and of teen pregnancy. Clearly, what we're doing right now doesn't work. So maybe we should try something else.
mean, in most places, it has gotten better because we do live in a different age than our parents did, and even the generation before us did. We have more access to information, and those rates are going down. It's just that in certain areas we do see that spike that's happening, but overall, in comparison to how long these topics have been discussed, the rates have gone down the more information we have access to.
Absolutely.
So, whether or not these classes are mandatory, I think even just having the option to have this class would make things better, even if it wasn't mandatory. Because a lot of times, younger generations don't learn from their teachers, they learn from their friends. So if
Yeah,
a friend happens to be able to take this class, then automatically their other friends are going to be wondering what they're learning.
absolutely. And even if you can't make the class mandatory, I think just being able to hand out pamphlets about the stuff should be allowed. You know, I think it would be beneficial. And you see, at least it feels like there's a rise that the kids want these classes. They want to know. And I think that as our generation progresses and as our country gets older and as the time passes, I think we will see a rise in these classes becoming mandatory. But until then, we're just gonna have to wait. You know. Well, thank you again for listening to the Human Sexuality Podcast. I'm Lee, have been
Yeah.
Lee.
And I'm Peyton.
Yes, and we want to thank all of our researchers and our editor, Callie, our editor, and our researchers, Lydia, Anna, and Madeline, and our one subscriber, Dr. Carrasco. Remember to smash that like button on YouTube.